I call this "What Would Milarepa Do?" And I have to confess, this little blog is a little convoluted, folks. So join me if you have the interest, and you can let us dis- discuss what the great meditation masters may be doing when they sit for days or years in a cave or wherever they are. I'm always looking to find in my own personal Dharma practice and experience what the written and the spoken Dharma teachings have to say, and they are by now really imprinted in me from all the years of reading, studying, and listening. This is about what I think is supposed to happen if I practice. However, that particular approach is an unfortunate habit because of my experience. Because how I realize the Dharma hardly ever works out the way the teachings describe it. In fact, for me, it's usually is so far off from what I imagine should happen from this or that practice that often I can't even recognize the signs that I read about in the teachings when I experience them in real life. This can be discouraging, but it's not even a little bit unusual. It's more usual than not. So here I am, looking out there in the Dharma books and teachings. Well, in fact, my actual practice, reality, is always right in here, based on what I'm actually experiencing from inside me. And it can't be any other way. At some point, we each have to transfer our attention from out there in the written and oral teachings to in here with what is in reality happening Dharma-wise within us. And as phrased in our own words. This is hard to understand. Understanding my words, but just the experience is very, very difficult, at least for me. Inside of us, that's where any realization must and will eventually come forth. And not from out there in books and teachings. As the teachings say, we must become familiar with the mind. And familiar means in our own words familiar, in our history, so to speak. Now, in my own Dharma experiences, what arises may be, and usually is, nothing like what the textbooks put it, but always only how those external teachings that I read about manifest for me personally, which, remember, is from what is inside me, what's coming out, not and never from the outside in through books and teachings. Consider that, please, because mistakes of this type are the rule and not the exception. And they can be, and usually are, very subtle. Otherwise, we would have realized the Dharma long ago. Any realization that waits for us down the road, by definition, it can't be what we thought or imagined it was going to be or supposed to be, but always something that we have not realized. That's why we have the pointing out instructions. We don't get it yet, so we can't have it happen as we expect it, because if we did, we would already have the realization. Yet we don't, because, as I mentioned, that would be realization. It's just what we don't have. I'm beginning to think, and perhaps even realize a little, that the meditation in a cave of a Tibetan saint like Milarepa, which I've always wondered about, is not just sitting in a cave and doing who knows what, but whatever Milarepa was doing must be related to insight meditation and its place in Mahamudra practice. And as maybe you can see, this topic, at least for me, is kind of difficult to put into words, so please bear with me. When I do insight meditation of the Mahamudra type, which involves realizing something more about the nature of samsara, incrementally, which is traditionally called, and I quote, extending and expanding, end quote, our initial realization as to the nature of samsara. As time goes by in such meditation, aside from the practice process of expanding and extending our realization, what's achieved by that? And that what's achieved is the accumulation of increasing awareness. And resting in that increasing awareness adds up, and we become one with it. As I look up at the clock when I'm doing insight meditation, I notice that time has gone by that I cannot account for. So what exactly am I doing in that time that went by so fast? Kind of reminds me of the pulp newspaper. Inquiring minds want to know. Well, I certainly do. Well, of course, I'm doing insight meditation, which, as mentioned, insight meditation is the process of expanding and extending my realization as to the true nature of samsara. Yet, at the same time, our realization is ever deepening. And here's the point. And then we rest in that accumulating awareness. In fact, the whole of insight meditation practice is an ever-increasing expanse of pure awareness. At some point, it seems that our focus of attention shifts from this quite obvious process of incremental expansion to the growing, accumulating expanse of the awareness itself, and our being able to rest in that. So in the end, it's all about awareness. Mind that, please. Or is it that over time, to use an analogy, that the consonants of dualism are eliminated, leaving only the vowels? And given still more time and practice, perhaps I won't even have to bother to think, and that only those gaps of awareness between thoughts, that widening gyre of spatial awareness, perhaps eventually will be enough. I won't need an excuse to allow the gaps of awareness between my thoughts and words to become my focus. But instead, I will just rest in this growing sphere of awareness, which is not a stretch of some nothing, but rather a widening increase of crystal clear awareness as to what is. And awareness, that's the key word to describe it. When I think of Milarepa or any of the great meditators sitting there for a day, days, or a year in meditation, I had imagined their mind clear, empty of all thoughts, empty of everything. Well, that was an ignorant assumption on my part. One thing that Milarepa's mind was not empty of is awareness. And it was in this awareness itself that he rested all of that time on the cushion. Awareness of what? Well, awareness of everything there is to be aware of, including awareness itself. Milarepa's mind was probably filled with awareness of what is. And my point here is that within insight meditation, with its process of the realization of samsara, there are not only interstitial gaps. Insight meditation itself is like one great space of undivided awareness. It has no stops. It has no subject and objects. All that I know is that when I'm involved with insight meditation, the time just vanishes. I can look up at the clock and it's 45 minutes later than it was a moment ago. What happened to that time? Well, I believe I am starting to understand something about what that might be. It's not like I'm sitting there holding my breath or treading water, so to speak. Awareness itself is not empty like a cup can be empty, but it's filled to the brim with itself, with the awareness of all that is. And that, as I mentioned, includes everything, including awareness itself. Sure, I am deepening my understanding of this, and that through this process of insight meditation, yet in and through that deepening, time is the loser. Time is somehow lost or put on the back burner. It's just gone. What was that? What is that? Unless it's something like what meditators must experience. So, what I'm thinking now is that I'm just reaching the edge, perhaps on the verge of a deeper form of meditation. And what I see is this greater awareness, punctuated by the process of realizing this or that going on. However, given yet more practice, I'm betting I will have less of the punctuation and more of just the awareness, meaning that the timeless gaps of awareness that are part of insight meditation will extend, expand, and like a sinkhole, swallow up more of the features to be found at this peripheral edge of insight meditation, leaving me with vast stretches of awareness that are empty of time, but filled with the intense awareness of the present moment. And resting in that vivid awareness is what we will do more and more of. And somehow, that increasing awareness in which we learn to rest is an integral part of the ongoing process of enlightenment. Enlightenment's not a state, but an endless process.